fellas, listen, I've read a lot of fan fiction in my time. Okay. Let me tell you.
I've not approved anything my co-host is about to say. I just want that to be straight. Welcome to Mortified, the Friendship Quest, the podcast where two long-distance friends bounce media recommendations, all in hopes the other will like it. I'm Aaron.
And I'm a wolf thing.
And this week, we transcend humanity in Breaking Dawn, Parts 1 and 2. Before we imprint onto an egg in someone's ovary, remember you can help us on Mortified the Legitimacy Quest by subscribing to us on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, signing up for our monthly newsletter through the link in our show notes, or following us on Twitter and Tumblr at MortifiedPod. Leyla.
Aaron.
We've done it.
Happy Valentine's Day to your wife, who a year ago asked me to make sure you finish this franchise.
You got me.
I got you.
You've conspired against me, and I am powerless to stop you. I've been Twilight pilled. This is it. I've completely come around. I'm getting a Stephanie Meyer tattoo at the end of the month. It's going to be great. Yeah, no, it's actually a very good franchise, and there's no problems with it whatsoever.
No, not at all.
That's obviously a joke, but I did like Breaking's Dawn, parts 1 and 2. They're probably, like, aside from New Moon, I think they're my favorite two films in the franchise.
They're good. I think they might have been remastered slightly for home release. I'll talk about it, but there are things I remember seeing in the theaters that I did not see in these rewatches.
I'm wondering if maybe you had a wildly different Twilight experience than everyone else.
I mean, I had a wildly different Twilight experience in the sense that I was reading and watching the books and movies as they were coming out.
I just feel like maybe you've invented the Robert Pattinson cut in your mind, and now it's just a happy memory.
Oh God, that would be tragic, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So let's talk about Breaking Dawn Part 1. Do you have a preference on which one you summarize? Because I can do.
No, whichever one you liked better. It's all yours.
Let's start with 1. I'll do 1.
Okay.
So yeah, this is it. Edward and Bella, they're getting married. Edward Cullen. He's our hot vampire boy, played by Robert Pattinson. Bella Swan, soon to be Bella Cullen, played by Kristen Stewart. They're our main couple. They've been, on again, off again, having weird vampire troubles. There's a wolf love triangle somewhere with Jacob Black in here. But this is it. They're getting married. August 13th. That's their wedding day. So,
wow, I can't believe Axel and Roxas have to share an anniversary with
that's
Edward.
Tragic. Actually, I think Axel's 7, isn't he?
No, he's 8.
Who is 7? Sykes is 7.
Okay, we cannot do this.
Sorry, too much Kingdom Hearts. Anyway, but yeah, August 13th, that's when they get married. And like, I like the first part right there. They're doing stuff. Rosalie and Alice are like prepping Bella for the wedding. Like, they're trying to teach her how to walk in high heels. When Bella is like crying with her parents, she's like, do not smudge my masterpiece. Do not, cry and get your parents' hugs on this. I spent too much time on it. It's very funny. It's fun. It's cute. Charlie, who is Bella's dad, and Bella's mom, whose name is
oh, come on, it's half of Renesmee. Which half?
Renee. Is it Renee?
It's Renee.
Okay, sure. I hate Bella's mom, so I don't care.
She's like barely a character. She's an idea.
I know, but like she's Bella's mom's reaction to all of this is irresponsible.
So fucking funny.
It's just like, oh, my 17-year-old daughter is getting married to a boy she's known for a year. Excellent. Great. I'm going to fly out to Washington and have a totally, I'm not going to ask any questions about the relationship whatsoever. I'm just going to be fully supportive. And like, listen, you should be supportive of your kids when it's responsible. I think you need to do a little bit more digging, Renee, to talk about this kid that she just met and now is getting married to. Like, hey, but no, she's 100% bought in, and she's just like, hey, yeah, no, I'm so happy. And Charlie's just like, I hate all of this.
Sometimes the best way to support your child is to say no to them.
Right. Listen. You gotta listen. Sometimes being a parent means drawing a line in the sand, and this is one that I think is a very reasonable line to draw. Anyway, Charlie is so out of his depth. He doesn't know what to do. He's like devastated because Bella's like, her bags are packed. Like, she's moving out like that night. Like, it's bad. I feel terrible for Charlie throughout these two films.
Charlie truly gets the short end of the stick. Fucking another highlight of the wedding, though, is, you know, who does ask questions? My friend and yours, Anna Kendrick. She does want to know if this is a shotgun wedding and Bella is Pregante.
I mean, like, a completely reasonable question to raise if two 17-year-olds are getting married. Like, yeah, that's fair, actually, Anna Kendrick. I think you're not wrong.
There are a couple of moments where this movie kind of pokes, not fun, but kind of voices common criticisms about the goofier parts of the story. I think in BD2 too, when the baby is getting named, Jacob is like, no, those names are stupid, which is a common criticism at the time. Anyway, this wedding.
And currently by me.
And me also, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, basically the wedding goes pretty good. They make out when they do the you make us the bride bit, which
don't do that at your wedding.
It's a little, listen, I'm sure you love your partner very much. It's a little bit much. Like, save that for later. But yeah, it's icky. It was like a 1 minute long makeout session. I was like, that's too long. Anyway, the reception's cool. Except for there's some people. There's one very funny thing that happens, which is Anna Kendrick is looking at their like human-sized cake. It is enormous, and she's like, "Oh, I thought it'd be bigger," which is very funny. Just like, she's obviously so upset. There's a bunch of like speeches that people make. Edward or Charlie's just like, yeah, I mean, I'm a cop and I know how to use a gun, so I'm not worried about their relationship at all. Which is like, listen, ACAB, but you know what, Charlie, I'm gonna let you abuse your power a little bit here. That's fine.
So I think that some of these speeches, because I watched these movies a couple hours ago, either I walked away to heat up some soup for a second, or this was only in your extended cut.
Yes, no. So my partner, my wife, has the extended edition, so there are a couple extra scenes in here, and the speeches were fun. Anna Kendrick is just like, wow, I can't believe I'm not getting married to Edward. Basically, she's just like, oh, you know, it's so great that Bella got married instead of me, even though I'm like the captain of the cheer team and the valedictorian. I'm kidding. But like, it's obviously like a, you know, drunk lady tries to give a speech and is like kind of shady at your wedding sort of deal. It's very funny. And then Edward gives a speech to Bella, which is very stupid. Listen, if you are the bride or groom or whatever you want to call it, the person who's getting married, you don't have to give a speech at your own wedding. That's what other people are there for. So you're welcome. Don't do that. Yeah, no, it's a good time. Anyway, but the most important thing that happens is that, one, there's a bunch of Alaskan vampires that show up, and they're like, oh, there are werewolves here, so we gotta go. One of them's mate was killed by the werewolves, right? One of them was Laurent's partner, I want to say.
Maybe. I don't pay attention to the tertiary vampires.
Listen, they don't matter at all, except they come up in Breaking Dawn 2. So, like, just keep in mind there's Alaskan vampires here. One of them has the power of taser. But basically, Jacob actually takes off when he gets the invitation. He gets really upset and like disappears into the woods. But Edward tracked him down somehow. And Jacob comes to their reception and is able to, you know, say goodbye one last time. And they start talking about the honeymoon. And she's like, oh, well, I'm not going to change like during the honeymoon because, you know, the vampiric process is like very painful. So yeah, I'm going to be a human while we go on our honeymoon. And he's like, wait, they don't ever say the word fuck, but like, he's like, oh, you're going to fuck while he's a vampire and you're a human. And she's like, yeah, why? And he's like, that'll kill you, dog. And she's like, no, it won't. It'll be fine. And it's very funny that that's the conflict. But anyway, Jacob's like, whatever, fuck you all, I'm leaving, goodbye.
He sure would like to fuck them all.
Yeah, I bet that's true. Check out my fanfic. That's on archiveofourown.biz. Anyway, the reception ends, and Bella is taken on a surprise honeymoon. Hey, another wedding planning tip. You do have to tell your partner where you're going on your honeymoon. It's real bad. Furthermore, don't surprise your partner by going to the city where you hid for a year while you were trying to break up with them. They go to Rio de Janeiro, the place that Edward canonically was hiding in New Moon because he tried to dump Bella. But then when he learned that Bella, quote unquote, had died, he tries to kill himself after, I don't know. He goes to Italy to kill himself, which is very stupid, but whatever. Anyway, bad timing all around. It's a wild choice, but they're not actually staying in Rio. They're going to the private island. It's Isle Esme, right? It's named after the mom. Mm-hmm. And they have their private house there, and it's great. And we get the sex scene. We finally get a Twilight sex scene. I'm not like a connoisseur of sex scenes or anything. I thought it was extremely restrained.
I mean, it's a book written by a Mormon lady in which vampirism is kind of an allegory for virginity. The whole thing is like, you shouldn't fuck till you're married. That's kind of the whole point of the books. So naturally the sex is very normie, very gentle, very restrained. Yes, a bed gets broken, but I mean, during the... Listen, not to be blue, but the gentlest, slowest thrusting ever put on screen. And then a couple days into their fuckfest, Edward shows Bella that she has, like, bruise fingerprints on her. Fellas, listen, I've read a lot of fanfiction in my time. Okay. Let me tell you.
I've not approved anything my co-host is about to say. I just want that to be straight.
Okay,
before whatever happens.
There is a plurality of people out there who would find getting a little banged up during sex pretty hot. There are also people who are paper white like Bella that bruise easier than you think they might. Just to have Edward treating some light bruising as spousal abuse when I know for a fact that that's a feature, not a bug, for a lot of people is very funny to observe.
Yes, right. Like this, which is like the level, like the 101 kink zone, right, is like so terrifying.
It's not even a kink.
Right.
The most normal live, laugh, love housewife who has a subscription to HBO would get a couple of glasses in her and could tell you she'd like to get tossed around in bed a little bit more. Okay, that is the level we're operating at. This has not even entered the kink zone. So
right, and it's a little silly, and it does. Here's the thing, I do kind of like the sequence that comes after, which is like Bella's like, "Hey, dude, chill the fuck out, let's bone."
Oh, it's hysterical.
And like she just like tries to get him to fuck her in increasingly elaborate ways, like continually coming out in lingerie, like going to bed like with her ass up, like pressed into him, just like really, really like, and then like she has a dream where she beats him in chess and then they fuck, and then she wakes up and she's sad that she's not getting railed. And Edward's like, "Oh, why are you sad?" And she's like, "Well, I had a good dream about getting fucked and I'm not getting fucked right now." And it's very funny.
Aaron, you're skipping over the most important part. Okay. She had a sex dream so good she cried. She was crying when he woke her up.
That's true. It's a little much.
Virgins, man.
Yeah. Listen, as somebody who works in the field of sexual health, I can't say that like maybe you should get more experience. Like there's a lot of complicated situations, but the fact of the matter is, like, once you turn 18, maybe you should just try some stuff out before you get married. As long as you're, using protection, it's all consensual and fun. Maybe just try some stuff out, because this is a little
It's a little.
It's a little much.
It's a little much. I would also like to. Okay, so like I said, I was viewing these movies contemporaneously as they were coming out. Actually, we saw Breaking Down Part 2, I'm pretty sure very close to the release date as a group. I'll talk about Part 2 when we get to Part 2, but like I've never had as much fun in a movie theater. Maybe for Fast 9, and I anticipate I will have just as much fun for Fast 10. But like, I think these were remastered, or I made up an alternate cut of this film in my head. I've had a conspiracy theory for the last decade that Robert Pattinson was in the edit bay for these because they were edited almost like a parody of themselves. And one of the things I remember is that when Bella had her little orgasm, which is it's just a close-up on her face, just going, you know, all right. I do remember.
And that's what orgasms are like.
That's exactly what they're like. They're,
as far as I know.
They're that tame. You look that made up. You know, no scrungles whatsoever. And I do remember there being like a little bit of a glitter effect on the frame that is not there in the version I rented on YouTube.
I think you made up your own private fan cam.
Somebody verify this. Like, somebody who saw these movies in 2011, please.
Anyway, the most important thing that happens out of all this like sweet lovemaking is that Edward, despite being 100 jillion years old, doesn't know how Babby is made, and he hasn't been using protection. So when Bella starts throwing up, he's like, what happened? What's going on? And Bella's like, hey, how am I pregnant? I didn't even think that was possible. And Edward's like, I didn't think that was possible either. Anyway, Bella's pregnant. They have to rush home to Carlisle's house, and they're like, okay, you have a vampire baby in you, and that's going to be complicated. There are some like interesting details, which is like they can't like pierce the amniotic sac. Like they can't like do any sort of ultrasound. Because of
in Carlisle's home OBGYN office.
Yeah, also he just has all the shit in his house, which is very funny, but I guess he's been amassing literally hundreds of years of wealth, so sure, fucking whatever. It's very funny to me, but like I do kind of like that detail that's like, oh, okay, you know, anatomically, if you're gonna have a vampire baby, you're gonna have some weird shit going on. And like there's a conversation about how like the baby is both like dead and alive, and that's kind of fun. Like I like that. But yeah, basically this is where the actual conflict of the film comes up, because Jacob comes over and he's like, hey, what happened to Bella? And he's like, oh, Bella's weird pregnant. Like she's been back for a month and she's already like into her third trimester. That's not great. And because he has a psychic connection with all the wolves, they all learn of this immediately, and they're like, oh, that's an abomination. That's a monster. We gotta kill that thing. And so there's a mini wolf schism. Jacob and his two friends, Leah and Seth. Seth is like, I don't know, 15, and Leah is the ex-girlfriend of the pack leader. How old do you think Seth is?
15.
Oh,
I was just shaking my head because I love Seth so much.
Seth is great. He's my favorite.
He's just a baby boy.
I love all the wolves. The wolves kick ass. But like, yeah, she and Seth defect to go help Jacob. Basically, they're like, hey, the wolves are coming. They're gonna kill your kid. And the vampire's like, okay, well, we have to just, you know, hang out here until the baby is born, and then we'll figure something out. And then there's, you know, some complications, right? The werewolves have like just laid siege. They've cut off their supply lines. The vampires can't go hunt, so they're very hungry and weak. They have there's like a fun scene where Bella has to drink blood, like packs of O negative blood, and it's like Jacob the whole time is like, I'm gonna fucking puke. This sucks. This is gross with you and your blood slushy. But like Bella's like, this is so good. My baby loves it. So it's fine. But it's like fun stuff that happens. Like the thing that I like about these films is that it isn't all plot. It is like some of these like weird downtime, like world building, like character development moments, where it's just like, oh, what would happen if Bella and Jacob and Edward were all hanging out, and you know, Bella had to drink a blood slushy? Like, how would everybody react to that? I
mean, it's if fan fiction became a novel, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like this is, as somebody who has written some fanfiction in her time. And by her time, I mean fairly recently. That's what you want to explore in fanfiction is kind of the downtime. It's what you don't see in this plot because you got to move the story along.
Right.
And I saw like an interesting article about like kind of in defense of the amount of porn in fanfiction, where it's like the fandom's ascribing meaning to sex by using these pre-established relationships as like a kind of building block. So you're kind of like adding dimensions to sex that you don't normally get out of like porn. Fanfiction is good is what I'm trying to get at. It's an interesting like area to play around in, especially if you're trying to like learn how to write, because you're playing dolls with someone else's thing. But so Twilight very much is the reason it's so appealing, or was so appealing also in 2008, is because this is like, very still like boys versus girls. Girls are from Venus and boys are from Mars and blah 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 blah. So the markets very much believed that all girls liked these like domestic fantasies, and that's what this is selling you. It's selling you this like protracted domestic fantasy with a little bit of vampire fighting in between. Which is to say, girls do like domestic fantasies, but they also like some fucking violence. But yeah.
Yeah. There's another sequence here that, like, I think is interesting, and I'm glad they included it in some ways. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I think it is interesting, which is that, like, Jacob is hungry, and, like, they ask Rosalie to get him something to eat. And Rosalie, I don't know why she doesn't like Jacob. I think it's just because she's a racist. But, like, she, gets him food. And she gets him a hot dog and she puts it in a dog bowl and she sets it on the ground for him. And she's like, there you go. Here's your food, dog boy, you fucking mongrel. I think she does drop the M word here in a bit. And then Jacob takes a bite out of the hot dog and then throws it in the back of her head, which I was like, yeah, that's a completely appropriate response.
I think that's an extended edition scene.
Okay, you didn't see this.
That sounds very satisfying.
Yeah, no, because it was great. Okay, so that's why I hate Rosalie. Rosalie's mega racist in these movies.
I didn't get the Rosalie racist cut.
Yeah, no,
I got the Rosalie protective auntie cut.
Listen, she's fine as a weird baby obsessed lady, but I did get to see her be like a weird racist beforehand, so that kind of took everything out of this.
Okay,
for
that
me.
Justifies why you don't like her.
Yeah, I think it does. Anyway, I'm glad that she got a hot dog thrown in her hair, because then, which is also funny because Edward and Emmett, who I think is her husband, is
Boyfriend.
also
Yeah.
Oh, okay, they're not married. Okay, but ever. They're all laughing at her after Jacob throws a hot dog at her, which is really good. It's like, well, what did you expect, lady? It's great. Like that's kind of why, like, there are these weird moments of levity in at least in the extended cut and in Breaking Down Part 2 that are like genuinely fun and interesting and like play with the conceit in a way that I like. And that's why I had a lot more fun with these movies and certainly Eclipse, which is just a plot-heavy slog. Anyway, Bella has to give birth eventually. The time comes. It goes bad. Carlisle is off. Like, they had to do a distraction thing. So, he is off, hunting. He's not there to help deliver the baby. So it's just Edward and Jacob.
And Rosalie.
Oh, I guess Rosalie's there. Yeah, two boy geniuses and a racist here to deliver this baby. Edward has to perform a manual C-section, an oral C-section, which is pretty gross. It's like the only genuine moment of tension in these movies, and it's kind of remarkable how scary it is.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure I covered my eyes in any other time I've seen this movie. I covered my eyes watching this. Because it's like I'm seeing it for the first time. It is gruesome. It is from Bella's point of view, so like you can't see what they're actually doing. But
right.
Like Rosalie goes at her with what looks like a box cutter.
Yeah, she has a scalpel and just like opens up her stomach. She tries to. Or no, she does. And then Bella's human blood is on the scalpel, and then she's like, "Oh shit!" And then I think Jacob has to like fight her off.
Yeah,
and
so
that's why
like
it's just Edward
fighting in the other room, and Edward literally rips her fucking stomach open with his teeth to pull the baby out, and then she dies.
And she does die. She straight up dies. But thankfully, Edward, one has a syringe full of his venom, which is very funny to me to imagine, like, how Edward had to procure that, which is like, you know how to make anti-venom, they have to milk snakes?
He just walked around with a little cup, like, on his teeth.
we did in the extended edition. There's just like a couple minutes with him just like just leeching venom into a cup, which is very funny. But then he also bites her body a bunch to get as much venom in her as possible. She is so juiced up. But yeah,
it's just funny because she's like all bone at this point, so he's just kind of crunching on his dead wife.
Just like a human goldfish.
Wife jerky.
Yeah, extremely funny. So, but like it seems like Bella's dead. They change her into a blue dress, but they're like, well, we wait and see and hope that she turns. Meanwhile, the wolves attack, and the wolves are wrecking them. It's awesome. I love the werewolves just owning the vampires. It's just mayhem. It's awesome. I love the werewolves every single time. Wolves are cool. Wolf girls, I get it. I respect that.
Thanks for validating me, friend.
You are valid.
Thanks.
But yeah, like, so there's a point where Jacob's like, I'm actually going to kill the baby myself. He tells that to the rest of the wolves. And he goes to like ambush Rosalie, who doesn't give a shit that Bella's dead. She's just like, I have a baby now. This is great. I'm going to be a cool auntie and I have a baby.
Rosalie walks into that operating room with Bella's dead body and just takes the baby and walks out with no reaction. It is the funniest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, Rosalie fucking sucks. She does not give a shit about Bella at all. I hate her. But yeah, no. But what happens, and this is one of the many problematic aspects of Twilight. She is like playing with the baby, and over Rosalie's shoulder, Jacob sees the kid, and his wolf genes fire, and he imprints. Which, if you don't know, it means that they're basically soulmates. I wish that had not happened when she was a literal infant. I think the concept of soulmates in YA is fine. I don't think it should have happened with the baby.
Yeah.
It's a bad look. It's not great.
The movie then proceeds to spend some time being like, it's not like that. But then at the end, like, Jacob does ask Edward if he should call him Dad now, and there is like a weird montage where you can tell it gets romantic once Renesmee matures.
Becomes 7, which is when she's canonically an adult, which is not great. I wouldn't listen. I think that there's very few things in fiction that you should not portray, right? I think that a lot of people should, be able to explore weird concepts in fiction. If you're going to do your world building that's based around, if you're trying to go for like a soulmate sort of deal, you really, really should just go with the time skip. You shouldn't do this with kids. It's not great. Like, I understand what you're going for, Steph, but like, as a fellow writer, you got to be so careful.
Right. And the thing is that Jacob didn't really imprint. Jacob imprinted on the egg. So,
okay. My wife told me about this too, right? She brought this up, and I don't... this must be a book thing, because it's not in the films. What do you mean he imprinted on the egg?
That's why he was in love with Bella, because as soon as Renesmee came out her womb, she didn't care about being near him anymore, and he didn't care about being near her. They were just normal friends. That weird, inexplicable connection between them was gone, because what Jacob knew, like, he's biologically in the world of these novels, he imprinted on the egg in her. Like, his genes were already drawn.
It's fucking stupid. Whatever.
It's
okay.
So stupid. I want to before we move on to Breaking Dawn Part 2, I want to give some flowers. And my flowers are to the VFX artists, because I really bought emaciated Kristen Stewart.
She looks bad. She looks, like, awful.
She looks awful, but it doesn't stick out. Renesmee, and this is not the artist's fault, this is the technology that was available at the time. Renesmee looks like a medieval painting of a baby.
It's very funny.
No one looked at a baby. They just kind of made what they thought one looked like. And her CGI is like kind of famously maligned about this film. The CGI baby it's not good. Again,
I thought it was fine. I truly did not bother me at all.
It's passable. I didn't love it. And, like, the wolves, you can tell the wolves are CGI. Like, they didn't necessarily go for hyper-realism with the wolves.
Yeah, sure, but they're fucking wolves. Like, I am so... none of the CGI in this bothered me at all. I was completely happy with it.
The baby bothered me. The wolves didn't bother me, per se, but I just want to call out that, like, emaciated Kristen Stewart felt real.
Right. It's good.
She looked wild. And there's a moment while she's like slowly unconscious in her 2013 Charlotte Russe mini dress that every girl owned at the time. There's a moment where like at one point Carlisle says that the baby's like kicking her ribs and like fracturing her ribs, but she's laying there on that operating table and you don't realize how flat she is until her ribs all pop back into place. Mm-hmm. Wild.
Yeah.
This movie's gruesome.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I think they're like really like, listen, all the weird pregnancy shit aside, like it is kind of like a fun exploration of like, what if a vampire, what does a half vampire, half human baby look like? And what does the, pregnancy process look like when it goes through that? And like, it's interesting. I have to give Miss Meyer props for like going the whole hog for this, like shout outs. Did not shy away from the premise. So thank you for that, Steph. But I think another fun thing is that like at the very end, like they zoom in, the last shot of this is like a zoom in on Bella's eyes and then she opens them and they're all red and then that's the cut to black. Like that's awesome. Like, come on. You can't get more high drama than that.
You can't. Can you imagine seeing this in the theaters?
I'm sure people lost their shit.
Oh, I lost my mind.
It's so good. It's really good.
All right, so I think with that, we can move on to the fucking masterpiece that is Breaking Dawn Part 2. So we open up and Bella's a vampire now. It's sick. If you remember, in this world, newborn vampires are like the strongest and like the coolest and the hottest. And that's why a couple movies ago, there was like a newborn vampire army because they would be too strong to handle. She almost murks a rock climber who scrapes their knee. Edward stops her. She goes, eats a cougar instead. When she gets home, she gets to hold her daughter for the first time. And Jacob is, like, weirdly overprotective of her. And Bella starts to get a little weirded out by that. She's like, since when do you give a shit about my daughter? You were talking shit about her a couple of days ago. And, it is at this point that all the vampires know what's coming and they clear the room.
It's so funny. Like everybody gets really uncomfortable and she's like, what's happening? And they're like, we're gonna get out for a sec. We gotta go. We gotta leave.
We gotta go sweep the ceiling. And so Jacob does tell her that he imprinted on her daughter. And she does exactly what she should do, which is she takes him by the fucking scruff of his neck and she throws him outside.
Yeah, then we get like the best line of the entire franchise.
Which is when Jacob says, what's best for Nessie, and Bella rightfully freaks out and says, you name my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster?
Incredible dialogue. So fucking good. Is that in the book?
Yes.
That's really good. Listen.
It's so good.
It's really good. You have to give it up.
I do. Thank you, Stephanie Meyer, for this beautiful piece of dialogue. So, she does hurt Seth, which boo, 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 boo. Don't hurt Seth. Don't hurt Seth. And after that, the tension resolves and we get back into these like slice of life moments. Once again, even though Bella hates surprises, the Cullen family surprises her and they get Edward and Bella a forest fuck house. I think this is hysterical.
It's really good. And they also like justify it in the film, which I at first I was like, why don't all the other vampires have a fuck house? And it's revealed like, oh, they did. This is everyone's vampire fuck house. Because they said like when Jasper and Al, no, it's not Jasper, it's Emmett and Rosalie, right? When they first got together, it took them 10 years before anybody could stand to be close to them because they were just so horny all the time. And it's just like that's very funny.
It's so funny. And again, it's like, this is so teenage girl fantasy Like, no realism, just a fuck house, you know?
Right, but like it speaks to the priority. I saw a tweet of writing advice earlier, like this weekend, that was like, the things that you include in your that are not plot relevant, that are like, the things that your character are thinking about, the things that they talk about that are not like advancing the plot, like that speaks to your priorities when you're telling a story. And this story's priorities are like exactly like you said, like teenage girl fantasy, like what if me and my boyfriend, by which I mean my husband, my 18-year-old husband, just had a house where we could bone down in complete like privacy, just do all the raunchiest, nastiest shit we wanted. And like that's awesome. Like these films are so, they're both very restrained in their like sexuality, but also completely unrestrained with the fantasy that they're going for, which is like being married to your young boyfriend and getting to have all these, domestic scenes. And like this is serving the audience what they want. I'm like, listen, I think if you look at any of the Star Wars, not any of the, if you look at Star Wars Episode 9, right, and 7, right, you see the pitfalls of giving your fan base too much red meat. But like, for this, like, this is completely fine, and it's good, and I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the marriage thing too, like, the vampirism removes the paperwork of marriage, right? So it removes you're living together, you're doing taxes, you're raising children if you elect to have children. It removes the in sickness and in health, right?
Right.
So it is what marriage is in this context. It is just commitment. It is just somebody looking at a young girl and saying, I choose you. And that is the apex of like fantasy marketed at girls of this era. And frankly, a hallmark of fantasy marketed, romantic fantasy period, always. It's just
what commitment. If I found a guy that wasn't going to murder me and was actually pretty cool? I guess in this case, he did originally want to murder her, but that's different.
It's fine.
It's fine. But like, you're right. It's like, what if I could get a man to like settle down and like actually commit to me in like a meaningful, true, honest way. And also he wasn't just like a weird pervert in other ways.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I mean, like,
the bar's on the floor, folks.
Bars on the floor. But that's also the like, man, not to sing Twilight's praises too much, but like at the time, the teenage romance, especially like supernatural romance, the whole point is like in when you're starting, and I think this phenomenon might be worse now because we were only just getting into Instagram, but like when you are constantly flooded with advertisements and societal pressure that you have to be like perfect, you have to look a certain way and act a certain way and buy certain things to be worthy of desire, to have a protagonist like Bella who's fucking nothing end up with like, the hottest guy at school, but he's also supernatural. So you get that like kind of entry level monster fucker aspect of it, where it's like girls specifically who are already socially isolated, who maybe are a little bit nerdier into like kind of weird shit. And this is the beginning of the mainstreaming of geek culture. You know what I mean? This is the foot in the door.
We put a pin in that because I want to talk about that with the fight scene also.
Oh, great.
I think this is all related to like the changing of the eras, like when the Obama presidency finally ends and we like we'll get there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I love name dropping Obama and her bringing.
Listen, Barack Obama knows what happened. The Twilight fans really came out for him in 2012. All I'll say.
Okay. So. Were we even old enough to vote? Whatever, it doesn't matter. So yeah, they're in the fuck house. They plan on telling Charlie that Bella got sick and died. But instead, Jacob chooses to remedy this because he realizes that if Bella, quote unquote, dies, they have to leave town, which means Renesmee leaves town. Jacob performs a striptease for Charlie and turns into a wolf.
It's really good. It's really funny because, like, one, I'm so grateful that somebody finally clued Charlie into all the fucking X-Files shit that's happening in this town. Thank you. Finally, somebody can just be normal about Charlie. But two, he does it in the funniest way, which is he's very slowly, like, first he takes off. He's like, Charlie, you're going to see some things. It's going to explain everything, but I got to do something weird for you. And Charlie's like, please put your clothes back on. I'm a cop, and you are a minor, like, sir. He like very slowly takes off his shirt, then his shoes, then his pants, and then his whole hog is out, and Charlie's just like, I can't believe this is the day I'm having. And then he turns into a wolf, and he's like, oh, okay, all right.
It's hysterical. And then, X-Files is such a good way to... Oh, I would watch the shit out of like an X-Files spin-off series with Charlie.
Please, that's all I want is like him and Renesmee solving fantasy crimes around forks is all I want. Him and his goddaughter,
fuck
his
our marketing
granddaughter.
minute. There it is.
Oh my Christ!
We've done a marketing minute in the middle of the show.
Oops, there it is.
Bella says she can't tell. When Charlie comes over after this, right? Jacob is like, "Hey, by the way, Charlie's on his way." Another hysterical scene in this movie is Bella getting human training, which is like, how do you consciously act like a human so the humans don't look at you standing way too still? She has to shrug her shoulders, blink 3 times a minute. It's very silly.
And she looks like an alien even more when she's trying to be normal. And Charlie immediately is like, hey, there's something wrong with you, girl.
Case 2 should have gotten some sort of award for this performance. I genuinely loved every minute of it.
I think he does a great job, like, portraying a dad who, like, is trying to be supportive, but also is, like, fully overwhelmed by the situation. Like, he does great.
Yeah, and then Case 2 on top of that, like, she's crushing it in these films. Like, she finally gets lines, is the thing.
That's true. Like, I don't know how many choices Bella makes in these films at all. I still don't know that she is an active...
That's the first one, really.
That's one. One is to fuck and keep baby. The second is to... I don't think she makes a choice in the second one. But listen, I have given up the fact that Bella is not going to be an active protagonist. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Well, because she's a stand-in for the audience.
Right, exactly. Billy Burke. I just want to shout out the actor's name, Billy Burke. You are a gem, and I love you.
Shout out Billy Burke. Yes. So Charlie, at this point, finally comes over, and, they have this scene where they reconnect, and you can tell Bella's, like, relieved to have him in her life and not have to pretend she's dead. But now, the baby is, aging quickly. So Bella and Edward end up with this weird vampire 7-year-old that they have to take care of. And one day, while this kid does, like, a Marvel jump into the air, they see Irina, who's one of their cousins from Denali.
You remember the Alaskan vampires? It's one of them.
What she's doing down here, I don't fucking know. But she's there, and she sees the kid. And, of course, she goes and snitches to the fucking Volturi.
This is Martin Sheen and the basically it's the Vatican, Vampire Vatican.
Yes. Martin Sheen, one of the Emmas? No. What's her name?
Dakota Fanning, who is once again crushing it in these films.
So she goes and switches to the Volturi, and they think that Bella and Edward have created an immortal child, aka they turned a living child into a vampire instead of having just like birthed this weird half vamp. This is a big...
I think this is... Yeah, it's weird. It's a big deal because, like, they give this, this big flashback sequence of one time the Alaskan vampire's, like, mom created an immortal child, and it, like, butchered a whole village because it's, like, a kid. It's got the, power of a vampire, but, like, the self-control of a child. And that's very interesting to me, but I didn't know... I was like, that's just what every 5-year-old in Naruto is like. Like, that's Zabuza. Like, that's just what Zabuza did in Naruto. Like... and that's where I was like, this film is leaning into some extremely like high fantasy like anime bullshit in a major way that I was like, okay, we're doing dumb shit. I love this.
If you are somebody who watching Twilight opened the door for you to turn into a weeb, please leave us a voicemail at 775-573-8882
Shout
or
outs.
email us at mortifiedpod@gmail.com. So in order to ensure that the whole Cullen Coven isn't wiped from the face of Washington, they decide to gather witnesses who will vouch that Renesmee is still human and eats human food and is like totally chill and cool and not at all a danger. In this, we get a bunch of different vampires. Some of them are literal Dracules, which is another moment of levity.
It's really good when everybody else is like Bella and Jacob have to like drive somewhere, and Jacob's like, "Hey, what's up with what's up with Nosferatu back there? Like, they're fucking creepy, right?" And Bella's like, "Yes, they fucking suck. I hate them." It's really good. Like, that's what makes these films great, is them just like laughing at the other weirdo vampires.
Yeah, and then we get another American revolutionary who truly will not shut the fuck up about it.
He's so annoying. I hate him so much.
And then also Rami Malek is there.
Rami Malek is great. He is basically the Avatar from The Last Airbender. He can control fire and water and air and shit and earth. He's very cool. The fucking American Revolutionary vampire, we were introduced to him with like, he attacks a man who is singing the Beatles in New Orleans, and he's like, "I hated the first the British invasion, and I hated the second just as much." And he's always like, this isn't the first time I stood up to a king's rule. And it's like, hey, bud, we get it. You're old. Shut the fuck up.
He's so fucking annoying. It's so funny. So as these witnesses are gathering and all this stuff is happening, we learn that Bella's power is shielding, which means that she can protect people from other vampire magic. Which, as you write here, is we're really getting into some My Hero Academia territory.
It's just, like, listen, the vampire superpowers haven't really come up because, like, Edward's superpower is being fast.
No, it's mind reading.
Oh, I guess that's true. But like, what
Emmett's power is just being strong.
Right. His power is I'm strong. Carlisle's power is I'm a doctor. I'm sure there's actual canonical answers, but like, they have not been plot relevant at all, except for, I guess, Edward being able to read minds.
And Jasper. Jasper can change the emotional tone of a room.
Oh, okay. I thought it was that he fought under Robert E. Lee. No, actually, Alice also. Okay, so I'm being a little bit facetious, but like, it really truly becomes like anime shit here, where it's like, here's every vampire and here's all of their superpowers. Like, here's Taser Girl and the Avatar and Dracula and Nosferatu. We're all here. Here's man with extreme Anglophobia.
Taser Girl and the Avatar might be the name of this episode.
Like, it's so wild. They're just like, we're going all in on vampire superpowers, because that is ultimately like the actual conflict here. Why the Volturi want to attack the Cullens is so they can seize Alice, because she has the ability to read minds, and like that was set up
predict
in like
the future.
Predict the future. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. And that was set up in like New Moon, I think. Right. Maybe Eclipse, but like this is the thing that I would not have got if my wife hadn't told me.
Yeah. There's some anime ass lore that happens here for fucking sure.
Right. But anyway, like, they also even have a training sequence, and my wife told me the training sequence was longer in the book. Like, This is extremely a thing that happens in anime.
Yes. No, this is absolutely some anime shit, and it only gets more anime from here. So
yes. Please continue. It's your review.
No, I love that you got so excited. You were about to just.
I genuinely like this movie.
Bugs. So at this point, the Volturi army rolls up to take on the Wolf and Vampire Alliance. So all the wolves are also here because they can't kill Renesmee because Jacob imprinted on her.
And one interesting thing is that because all the vampires are gathering here, that sets off their genes and turns more of the people of the Quileute tribe into Native Americans, which, like, listen.
It turns them into Native Americans?
No, sorry. It turns them into werewolves. See, I did a racism. I'm very sorry. Right, listen, I'm thinking of, like, listen, it's not great that it's like, okay, all people of the Native American Quileute tribe are werewolves, and they have, like, a genetic disposition to some weird shit. Like, I don't love that. But, right, it is still, like, fully buying into the mythology, and, like, it is kind of cool that it's like, okay, if all the vampires are going to be here, that means that more people are getting werewolf superpowers, too. I kind of like that.
Yeah, if lycanthropy wasn't tied to being native, then it would be more fun.
Yes, I agree.
So yeah, the Volturi roll up in their cool cloaks. Dakota Fanning's there. Love of my life, Michael Sheen is there. All fully buying into the bit as they should. At first, it seems like things are going well because Arrow learns that Renesmee is actually human, and he finds this very fascinating. And because he wants Alice so bad, Arrow's like looking for any excuse to wipe them all out. And then, so Alice goes to show Arrow that if he decides to attack the Cullens, what's going to happen? And this is not in the books.
No.
We get a incredible battle sequence that starts with fucking Carlisle's head getting ripped clean off.
I knew that this was a fake out going in because I, watch a lot of YouTube essays, right? But like, I was talking to my wife about this, who saw this in theaters, when it came out, like, and she was telling me, the theater was like dead silent, like everybody is just like horrified, right?
It was the most tense I'd ever seen a room.
Right, like, because it's not portrayed as Alice having a vision. It's portrayed as, like, this is what's happening. Like, we are completely going off script. We are just going to have everybody get fucking murdered. It is an it is just a wild, wild choice to play this completely straight. And it's not a short sequence, right? It's not like a 30-second fake out. It is a 10-minute full-on, like, they had to get stunt coordinators for this. Like, they had to, like, add, hundreds of hours of CGI, presumably, for all the werewolf, like, double team attacks. Like,
for Tanya grabbing that guy's jaw and ripping his head off at the fucking joint.
That's just a thing that happens in the King Kong movie from 2008. King Kong does the same thing to a T-Rex. And I was like, this feels very Marvel to me. And I was like, what year did this come out? This came out in 2012, the same year as the Avengers. Like, this predates the MCU as an established thing. And it's just like, I can't believe they did this. It is wild to me that they did this. Why did they make this fight sequence, Leyla? Who is here for this fight sequence?
I don't know, but I can tell you that the moment as soon as Dakota Fanning dies, there's like a little bit more after that. And as soon as this fight is over, it smash cuts back to Alice holding Arrow's hand and you realize it's a fake out. We screamed. It was just a row of teenage girls that I went to high school with. Shout out all my friends from high school. Screaming. I'm not the kind of person who makes noise in a movie theater. You've sat with me. I'm very chill.
I've sat with you through one hellish movie, to be fair.
And I was composed until the very end. So, like, for us to have made a noise in a movie theater, it was a lot. It had to take, it was amazing. It was just the unclenching that happened in that room.
I'm honestly surprised it wasn't more like a fucking Szechuan sauce, like Rick and Morty situation. Like, I'm surprised theaters didn't get burned down. Like, I cannot imagine what was happening going, like, it must have been just like people throwing shit through windows.
Well,
like,
also, this was like this predates like podcasts and YouTube video essays. So there wasn't like a huge online forum for these movies to get spoiled either. And like the fandom was pretty locked up about spoilers. So you'd have to like really go digging out a forum and like look past spoiler tags. So the fake out was like massive, right? It's honestly one of my favorite movie experiences.
Like in a year earlier, right? Or not a year earlier. This is the era where somebody yells a Harry Potter spoiler out the window of their car, right? Like, you have to actually, like, seek out spoilers. So, like, the fact that they, do this fake, I don't know if it's, I think it's disrespectful to the intended audience. I have no idea why they made this choice. But, like, it is just an incredible artifact that this film exists. And I don't know why. Do you have any idea why they did this?
I could not begin to tell you. It's a very expensive choice to make.
Yeah, like, it didn't... it must have been more trouble than it was worth.
I don't know. I think it was worth every penny, if you ask me. And I was the intended audience.
It was cool. It was a great fight sequence. It was awesome. Edward and Bella, like, do a cool, like, fucking roundhouse kick at some point. Like, they take on, what's his name together. It's cool.
I mean, so... I will always defend two things. I will always defend the fact that, one, companies don't understand that little kids love horror. So like the shows like Owl House, Courage the Cowardly Dog, a bunch of like the scarier, older, or moments with movies with scary moments in them of like the Disney Renaissance era and stuff like that. Kids love horror. They like to be scared. And two, I think that extends to the fact that little girls like violence, just no one ever sells it to them. And so I think it's a brilliant move to put this like incredible war scene in this movie for teenage girls. I think it's fantastic. I loved it.
Okay, so I'm reading an Entertainment Weekly article. It's called Breaking Dawn Part 2, How the Battle Scene Was Born, by Hilary Busis. But she's speaking to Melissa Rosenberg, who is a Twilight writer. And basically, she and Stephanie Meyer just decided that they would have this fake out. They just said, like, oh, who would be the most shocking to kill? It'd be Carlisle. But like then, we'd have to kind of make sure everybody has a moment. So Bella and Edward get to kill Arrow, and they just they want to make sure that they rip his head off. But like, the cast didn't find out about the battle scene until I had to finish the script. It was many months later when they first got on set, so they didn't know. Oh my god. So they did it truly just for the sake of faking people out.
Oh, that is funny. I love that. I love that so much. See, and I think that's like a fun surprise when the cast gets to find out about a scene like that, like during a table read or something.
Wild.
I would like to boo this trend of Marvel and apparently the Mario movie where actors don't understand, like, you are keeping scenes from actors. Have you read this thing where actors in the Mario movie don't get to see what they're acting against? They don't get the full scene. They just get their lines.
I haven't seen that in the Mario movie. That's very stupid that the Mario movie is doing this, but I have heard for like Star Wars and Marvel, it's like, oh, we got to make sure that nobody knows what's happening.
And then the actors have to give like 7. That's a waste of money. That's a waste of time. And it's dumb. And it makes the craft worse. Anyway... So, there's this fake out. It was Vision. Didn't happen. LOL, just kidding. And Arrow rightfully is like, I sure would like to not die. The one vampire who snitched, so Tanya, she does. But everything else ends well. Snitches get stitches. Everyone should just know this. Getting back into the problematique, a half-naked, half-human, half-vampire adult baby from Brazil shows up wearing a native costume. It's weird and bad.
It's really stupid. Why isn't he just wearing jeans?
Yeah, just make him wear jeans, please.
They also do this with the Amazonian vampires, which is, listen, maybe they are truly from, like, a tribe out there, but, like, I don't know. It's a little much.
Yes. I feel like Rosalie would, or not Rosalie maybe, but Esme would lend them a t-shirt for the cold Seattle winter,
Yeah, they're vampires. They're cold.
That's true. So he shows up and says Renesmee will stop aging when she turns 7 and she'll just be fully mature as an adult.
Sure.
Whatever. Then there's a stupid montage where you see that despite the movie's protestations, the imprinting that Jacob had with Renesmee will turn romantic when she reaches maturity, which is gross and weird. He does say one very funny thing, which is he does ask Edward if he can call him Dad, and Edward's like, absolutely not.
It's really, like, listen, the shit's already borked, like, you might as well make fun of it.
Exactly. And then we get the Christina Ricci, Love You for 1,000 Years. Christina Perry. Christina Ricci, star of one of my favorite films. Oh my God, Penelope. Yes. We just said her name.
Christina Perry.
Perry, thank you. Christina Perry's 1,000 Years plays. I swear to God, this montage was more purple in the theaters. I swear to God, it was more fan cammy, but I guess they toned it down for home release. Or, again, I made up a cut in my head. Fun fact, my cousin walked down the aisle to this song.
Yeah, it's good.
Everyone
it's
cried.
Nice.
It was nice.
Yeah, it's a nice...
Yeah, so, then, happily ever after, they make out in that flower field. It's good stuff.
It's nice. I think we give Stephanie Meyer a lot of shit for this being a Mormon allegory, but like I do kind of like the idea of turning vampirism into like an idealized state. It's like, no, you actually do get your heavenly body. You are strong and powerful and get to live forever with the people you love. Like, I think there's a lot of problems with the Mormon church and religion, but like if you're taking this completely in the best faith possible, it's like that's kind of a nice fantasy, and I like it.
It is. Listen. It is possible to say that there are problematic elements of this franchise because there are. I will include the same donation links as I included last time. Please support the Quileute tribe in their move away to higher ground if you have the means. But, at the same time, we could also praise it for being like genuinely a fun supernatural fantasy for girls. And I'm so glad that it's having a renaissance and people are taking it, because I think the reason people started to hate it is because we entered that like kind of CinemaSins era for a while where everyone was taking everything too seriously. It's just fun.
Right. I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Twilight suffered from an era where, we are starting to see social media come up, right? So people are starting to get incentivized to get into fights on the internet. Right. We are entering into an era where people are, right. This is 2 years away from Gamergate, right? So there's a segment of people online that are getting increasingly upset about women coming into their spaces and the things that women like and getting defensive about that. So that's definitely an aspect to that, right? I think that there's definitely, I don't want to say that there's a line between Twilight hate and Gamergate, but I would not be surprised if like people who are pro Gamergate like also, there are a couple of people in Gamergate who like were vocally like anti-Twilight, like made content shitting on Twilight, right? I bet there is some sort of comparison to be drawn there.
It's part of that era of backlash against
Right.
an era of female-led sci-fi and fantasy properties like Twilight and the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we're entering an era of backlash right now against queer stuff, right? You're getting, but more politically speaking, you're getting... It's like that domino meme. Like Gamergate is one of the middle dominoes, and the current fucking legal issues we're facing as a queer community are kind of one of the bigger dominoes. But it's it's an era of backlash, and it'll even out again, and then something else will progress, and there'll be backlash again. It always
Right.
It's just the ebb and flow that we live in.
I want to talk about how Twilight really is just like the marker of a certain era, right? Like I feel like Breaking Dawn Part 2, Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2, Mockingjay Part 2, right? That is a 2011 to 2015 like range, but like this was truly the end of a certain kind of YA,
Right.
I think, right? I think there's certainly like, right, there's talk about how Divergent like kind of truly ended that whole era of storytelling. But I also
Truly
feel like
with a whimper too, not with a bang.
right. Just the whole franchise collapsed under its own weight. But like I feel like right at the same time, right, Homestuck ends in, I want to say 2017, right? Like all of this, like I feel like is kind of caught up in a way that we talked about media and had relationships. And maybe it's just because like this is when I was leaving high school. This is like when maybe it's truly just nostalgia, but like I genuinely feel like there is a shift in the way we talked about media and the kinds of media that were being produced, like that ends around Twilight, Hunger Games. And like now, I mean, I guess it's just the MCU takes over, right? Like if we were talking about monolithic American franchises, this is where the MCU starts to, Avengers comes out in 2012. This is where it rears its ugly head, and we start getting the Disney calcification of everything. They buy LucasArts in 2012, or Lucasfilms in 2012 also, I want to say. Sometime around there, right? Like this is truly like the last gasp we got of like various franchises before, that we got the superhero era that we are still stumbling towards. I think the superhero era is finally on its decline. I think we are truly getting the MCU is starting to collapse. But like it is wild to think that like this was kind of really the last bit before everything got franchised and monopolized.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you think about it, Twilight right now, what we're experiencing too in the zeitgeist, at least of like cinema, is there is no more middle budget film. And
Right.
Twilight was a middle budget film that did exceedingly well and then became a big budget finale. And so like we don't have those opportunities anymore for middle budget things to grow. And it sucks. Listen, if I were to pick one big budget franchise that I think should get rights, it's the Fast franchise, which is again this like unserious romp that you and I both love dearly. So otherwise I'm quite sick of not the MCU itself, but just how long it's gone on. The Disney live action remakes, the revivals. Right. That's why you see which on their own, I don't think are all that bad, but just collectively being hammered with them all at once in this weird nostalgia era is not all that fun. And that's why when you get movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once from, A24, that's why there's such a breath of fresh air, because it's like finally cinema's trying something new again. But yeah, it really is. You're right. It really is the end of an era. And what an end. Like, truly, these movies fucking rule. There's Michael Sheen in these films. There is a couple of line deliveries from him that I will never get over. Just him leaning into Renesmee and just going, Magnifico is everything to me. And, like, you just don't get that kind of shit anymore, right? You get the, like, snarky, self-referential kind of stuff that I'm really burnt out on. But yeah, it's great. I do have kind of a bold question to ask you, though, Aaron, that I was pondering while I was watching these today.
Yes.
Should there be a Twilight musical?
Oh, should Twilight be a musical?
Or any of, the whole thing. Make it 5 musicals.
That's a different question, because I don't think Breaking Dawn should be a musical. I think there is room in the world for a Twilight musical. I think it does have to consist entirely of emo band music from 2005 to 2013. It does have to be a jukebox musical in that style, but like I think it's just like this is a melodramatic enough franchise that it would kind of slot in really well.
Well, because the music is basically a character in these films, right? Like, Bella's theme comes up, which is the song Edward writes for her, comes up quite a lot. And then these soundtracks fuck unequivocally. The sex scenes are set to Sleeping at Last, who I love.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
Turning Page is great.
Sleeping at Last features very heavily on my writing playlists, which I think is very funny. My music taste is still essentially Twilight soundtrack. A jukebox musical, fascinating. Yeah, I think I would love to see like a Flyleaf scored jukebox musical for Twilight. I think that would be the best and most appropriate venue. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yep. We've already done our marketing minute. I do think we should have Charlie and Renesmee Solve Crimes show. Do you have... I don't think I have anything else for the marketing minute, though.
No, I think, listen, buddy, I think we've really done the work here for Twilight. Oh, you know what? No, we can actually close out on, because this might be news for some folks. Fun fact, we found out last week that there will be 2 more Twilight books.
Oh, fucking Christ, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that, you know?
I don't either.
I think stories should end.
Yes.
Like, listen, I get it. You have to chase that dollar, but like, Steph, you're a multimillionaire. Like, I don't know that you need to do this.
I don't either, but I'm curious as to what she's going to do, because apparently writing from Edward's perspective gave her anxiety, so it won't be the continued retelling of Twilight from Edward's perspective. Which Midnight
What if it's Renesmee Jacob?
No. I'll die. I won't. I will not.
I'd be disappointed. I think Stephanie Meyer probably knows better than to do that.
Gorsh, I hope.
I sure hope so.
But yes, there will be 2 more Twilight books. If that's news to you, congratulations. I love being the arbiter of fun news for folks. But she is writing on, I think she's working on some other stuff before that, so it's going to be a while. Yeah, I mean, that's Aaron. We've done it again. Congratulations, you've seen the entire Twilight franchise now. Thank you for doing this for me and also your wife, mostly your wife, but also for me.
Yeah, I think that our marriage is stronger because of it. So,
Great.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Leyla, when we are not strengthening both my marriage and our critical lens for the media of the mid-2010s, where can we be found on the internet?
You could also say strengthening our friendship, considering the fucking title of our podcast.
Oh yeah, this is the friendship quest. But when we're not doing all that shit, where can we be found on the internet?
You can find me at LEYLSES on Twitter and Tumblr. Honestly, mostly Tumblr. I tweet maybe once every other day now. Yeah, I'm working a lot, but I hope to get back to my webcomic soon. Yeah, that's it. How about you?
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL. My personal website is aavoigt.com. I mostly talk about tabletop RPGs, but also sometimes health policy and sometimes just general writing stuff. If you liked vampires, I just put out a review of the vampire game Bloodbeam Badlands. It's like if there were vampires, but they were also cowboys, but also in the middle of the Fallout universe. I did a review on that for my YouTube channel. That's AA Voigt at YouTube. Check that out. It's not quite the same flavor as Twilight, but there are vampires and it's fun. I do another podcast with my friends Michael and Josh. That's at The Bible Boys. We will be talking about another Battles BC episode. We're gonna really dig into the Exodus story in the next 2 weeks, which will be interesting. So if that appeals to you, check that out. Our theme song is Obsolete by the Keshko from the album Filmmakers Reference Kit Volume 2. You can find more of their music at keshko.bandcamp.com. Leyla, what do we say to close out this episode of Mortified?
Oh, does no one have vision?
Not anymore. We'll see you all next week.